Hello, I'm Mary Smith, President of the American Bar Association. For today's edition of the ABA Presidential Speaker Series, under the theme Lifting Our Voices, Charting the Future, we have the unique opportunity to gain insights from the executives of one of the most innovative and influential social media platforms in the world, Pinterest. Bill Reedy is the Chief Executive Officer, and Wanji Walcott is the Chief Legal and Business Affairs Officer and Corporate Secretary. Leading our discussion today is Donna Zarconi, an experienced CEO and independent board director. Donna?
Thanks, Mary. I'm delighted to introduce our speakers today. Bill Reedy is the CEO and board director for Pinterest, joining the company in June of 2022. Previously, he was the president of Commerce Payments and Next Billion Users at Google. And prior to joining Google in early 2020, Bill was executive vice president and chief operating officer of PayPal, where he had a very successful career in building its financial technology business. In fact, Bill has been growing technology companies since very early in his career. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks for having me, Donna.
Wanji Walcott is the Chief Legal, Business Affairs Officer, and Corporate Secretary for Pinterest, joining the company in November of 2022. Wanji oversees the ethics and compliance, legal, corporate affairs, public policy, and trust and safety teams at Pinterest. Previously, she was Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel at Discover Financial Services. And prior to that, she served as Senior Vice President, General Counsel at PayPal. Welcome, Wanji.
Thank you, Donna. Great to be here.
Bill, you left a significant role at Google to join Pinterest. What attracted you to the CEO role at Pinterest, and how did your past experiences prepare you for this new opportunity?
What really attracted me was the chance to go prove a more positive business model for social media, to prove that you can win on positivity, not just engagement via enragement, and some of these things that have become a little bit more ingrained in the broader social media business model. And so that was probably the biggest thing that attracted me. And I'd say the thing that makes me jump up out of bed every morning is a chance to go work on those issues. They still exist, but we're doing a lot to try to make them better, and it's inspiring work.
It's really interesting, Bill. So that positivity piece, is that how Pinterest distinguishes itself from other social media platforms, or what are the unique characteristics?
It is one of the biggest. Over the last 2 years, Gen Z has become the largest demographic on our platform and our fastest growing. It's more than 40% of our users. And when you ask Gen Z, one of the things they will say in terms of why they come to Pinterest is that they see it as an oasis away from the toxicity that they experience on much of the rest of social media. And part of that is that we have a platform that is more about the user in a lean forward moment where they come here with intent and purpose. For those that may not be familiar with Pinterest, it's visual search and discovery, but people often come here to put together an outfit or plan how they're redesigning a room or think about how they might want to, where they might want to travel, but they do it in a very visual way. So part of it is that we have the user in a different mode than much of the rest of the social media, which tends to be more lean back entertainment and consumption. We have the user in a more lean forward mode. So Gen Z understands that about our platform, and it means that we're less predisposed to some of the politics and vitriol and things like that that can happen in other places. But we've also had to specifically tune to make sure that the positive content rises and not just the most triggering content or the most enraging content, to make sure that doesn't rise. We've had to do real work for that, but we see that cutting through with our audience, and Gen Z cites that when they're feeling burnt out and stressed out from time spent on social media, Pinterest is the place where they turn to be able to go invest in themselves and think about who they want to be versus maybe what others want them to be.
I love that positivity, and I think you definitely do have a distinction there. I can certainly tell you I used it for baby showers and bridal showers, so very positive events in my life. Wanji, you also had a significant Chief Legal Officer, General Counsel role at Discover Card when Bill reached out to recruit you to Pinterest. What attracted you to this role?
Oh my gosh, great question. And so I'm going to say it was really a couple things. One, I was very intrigued by the brand. I had been a Pinterest user, using Pinterest really for the first time. I maybe came to the party a little late in 2017, when I had bought a new home that needed to be renovated, and my contractor said, "Why don't you share your Pinterest boards?" And I said, "Well, I don't have any Pinterest boards," and that's where it all began. And as I've, kind of tracked the brand over time and then spoke to Bill about kind of his vision, in terms of our shopping strategy, in terms of our positivity focus, it really resonated with me. And it was really something I wanted to be a part of. And then most importantly, I think as described in the introductions, Bill and I worked together at PayPal and had a great time working on a lot of kind of thorny, cutting edge issues in fintech. And I just thought, wow, an opportunity to kind of reunite with Bill and kind of do big things, kind of in a new way, really just intrigued me. And so it's been, for me, I'm a year and a half in, it's been quite a ride, but really glad I'm here.
Well, it sounds like it's been a really good career move for you. I found really interesting when I looked at your current role is that your responsibilities at Pinterest extend well beyond what I would consider to be a typical chief legal officer role. Includes trust and safety, public policy, compliance and ethics, and probably a whole lot more. Can you share with us just what's all in your remit?
Well, first, I'm going to start by saying that when Bill and I were talking about my joining Pinterest, he told me that he would like me to be responsible for legal, which makes sense as chief legal officer, as well as compliance, public policy, which is our government relations function. And that was my purview. And I thought, you know what, I can do that. Done that before. That all sounds good. Sometime in between the time when Bill extended the offer to me and the time I started, which was about 4 weeks, Bill reached out and said, you know what, some changes have happened here. I would love for you to take on public affairs as well. To be honest with you, at the time, I wasn't even really sure what that entailed, but I was still excited to join, and I thought, you know what, I'll figure it out when I get there. And so then upon joining, I was quickly able to figure out kind of the work around public affairs, which encompasses, our relationships with our civil society partners, as well as ESG and sustainability and philanthropy and social impact, which is really how we engage our employee base around, volunteerism and giving. And all those things really magically kind of fit together with my role as it existed at the time. And then a few months later, Bill and I were having another conversation, and he said, you know what, I would really like you to kind of dig in and take on trust and safety. And I think at that point, I reminded him that it's not really my background. And he said, you know what, I think you can figure this out. And so kind of through the collective effort of numerous other colleagues, kind of, figured that out. And that's been really exciting to kind of take on as well. And I think just to have the privilege at this point in my career to kind of expand my horizon, so to speak, and to take on kind of new and interesting areas that really matter here has been really exciting.
Knowing you for years, I think that Bill probably chose wisely and giving you those extra responsibilities. And clearly you two have a strong dynamic, maybe because you worked together at PayPal before, but that trust that you have. Can you talk about how that informs your working relationship and your partnership at Pinterest? How do you collaborate? How do you work together to make important decisions? And how does that chief legal officer role support the overall strategy?
First of all, I'm just glad Wanji didn't describe all that as me pulling a bait and switch on her by piling more work in her direction after she joined. But starting from our time together at PayPal, it's been an amazing partnership, and Wanji and I have built a lot together. I say first and foremost, that's how I think about it. Is what are we building together? Who are we building that for? What problems are we trying to solve for them? What do we think makes us uniquely equipped to do that? And then, Wanji has an amazing partner in helping to think through, yes to all of those things, and then how do we go drive that through the business? What are the things that we need to think about as we project that forward into the future? And it really has been an amazing partnership. And I should share, some of it maybe doesn't come through in the respective bios, is that, when Wanji and I first started working together, I had mostly been a serial entrepreneur. I had done 5 startups, and I'd been through 3 IPOs and 5 sales. So even the IPOs we eventually sold, which meant that most of the time after I got a startup to a certain size, I'd sell it to a bigger company. I'd spend a little bit of time with that bigger company, then go build another startup. And Wanji and I started working together in a moment where, for the first time, I was sticking around and ended up running a big chunk of that larger company that I had sold to. I didn't know what I was doing, and I got paired up with Wanji. I knew about the product that we needed to build and those things, but what did it mean to operate a bigger business? How did you need to think about a much broader set of issues than what I needed to think about with smaller startups? And through at that time, I'd say just sheer luck on my part anyway, I got paired up with Wanji, who had recently joined from American Express. And she became an amazing partner, not just in thinking through, how we were going to go grow PayPal and build out, innovative new products and what that would mean for the users we were serving, but also for me personally, she became an amazing partner in my career journey in terms of thinking about a much broader set of issues for the business than what I had had to think about before. And so, coming to your question of like how we've worked together more recently, well, that just was natural to me that we've partnered on so much, almost everything, that as the business has evolved and there were new things to be addressed, I've seen Wanji solve so many things that, even in the wheelhouse of legal, you get surprises that you don't expect. And I'd seen Wanji go address those. And so we had some things like trust and safety, which were really important for us as a business. But I didn't think anybody out there had the answers because I didn't think social media was really addressing it in the right way. So I said, I don't think anybody has the answers. This is about good judgment, good problem solving, and I know Wanji has that in spades, and she's an amazing partner, and so that was how we got to that. But hopefully that gives a little bit of a sense of just how I think about the partnership. That it's not just about give me legal advice or tell me what's going to get me in trouble. We've been building businesses together, building products together for a long time, and deeply grateful that we get to do it again here at Pinterest.
Yeah, it sounds like Wanji's a great strategic partner for you.
Absolutely.
Beyond just the legal, which is a wonderful asset to have.
It's really a two-way street. I mean, I have to say, I've had the good fortune to really be able to be a trusted advisor to Bill. And by that, I mean, he has allowed me to kind of really think broadly about my role and where I can have an impact beyond legal, right? Just kind of in all facets of the business, whether it's by probing a little bit more, kind of being a bit more kind of thought-provoking in areas. And he's always welcomed that, which has, I think, been great for me. In addition, what Bill didn't mention is he questions everything. So it's not as though I, come in and say, okay, well, these are the legal requirements you need to be thinking about, or these are the risks inherent in the decision you want to make. He does not just take that at face value. So there's always a little bit of questioning, a little bit of challenging. And I have to admit, when I first started working with Bill years ago, I thought, oh my gosh, why is he questioning everything? But I began to, over time, really welcome that. And I really kind of think of it as like iron sharpening iron. Like he just made me better, kept me on my toes. I knew that he wouldn't take things at face value. So it really made me approach problem solving in a really thoughtful way to kind of look at all sides, not just kind of my instinctual, like, oh my gosh, there's some risk in kind of taking this approach, but really, okay, well, kind of like, what does that risk really look like? And is there another way to approach this? And I will say, Bill is like probably the most creative person I've ever worked with. And so he always has creative solutions. Some of them are great. Some of them are work in progress. But the good thing is that we work through them together. And I think, Bill, I hope you'd agree that we've gotten to like really good outcomes in so many areas because of that.
That's a great description, and I think I used to have that written on the wall as one of the principles, like question everything. But I think we get better for having had those discussions and having had those debates, and it's you're right. It's been a core part of how we work together, and appreciate the comment on creativity. I think it brought to mind another aspect of us working together, which is, I think this goes back to sort of like me as an entrepreneur a decade plus ago, that I sort of viewed, okay, well, legal is where I'm going to go to sort of ask for permission, maybe when I'm about to go do something anyway, or to try to sort of, validate it sort of closer to the end. And what I found, I probably had a bit of a perception formed by just, having been an entrepreneur selling to larger companies, that, sometimes legal might be the place to go where I get told what I can't do or shouldn't do. And in the partnership with Wanji, it's really been, Wanji's been an amazing partner in helping to partner with me in thinking through not, what you can't do, but how are we going to do the things that we need to do and make sure we do them the right way, in a thoughtful way, and we're seeing around the corner. And I think at the core of these discussions, those are the things we're like, I certainly feel like we come out of those, or at least I come out of those, far better for having had the dialogue, because we just get a much more informed perspective on a much broader set of issues.
That's a great relationship, Bill and Wanji. And it sounds like you're a trusted business advisor, but you're also keeping the business moving forward without getting into trouble, which is really, really smart. Bill, I want to switch gears a little bit because I'd love to learn more about Pinterest. Who's coming to Pinterest, and what are your users seeking and searching for when they're on the platform?
We're just over 500 million users. We have about 80% of those users are outside the United States, so it's a very global platform. Which also means it's a very diverse platform, right? We represent people from all walks of life, all different backgrounds, all kinds of different nationalities. We're a platform that now skews younger. Gen Z, as I mentioned earlier, is our largest demographic. At more than 40% of the users on our platform are Gen Z. But we're growing across every geography and every generation. So right behind Gen Z would be millennials, and then Gen X, and then boomers. And so it is broad-based. We do skew a bit more toward women, but it's a broad-based platform. And what are they coming to Pinterest for? They're coming for inspiration. People tend to come to Pinterest with intent and purpose, and the thing that Pinterest helps solve for them is how do they find that inspiration in a way that is highly visual, that helps them, satisfy that intent, satisfy that purpose in a way that's very visual, with some elements of social mixed in. But what we've worked really hard to do is make sure that we're getting the positive elements of social, where you can hear, oh, well, how did somebody else think about that room design? Or how did somebody else pair that handbag with that, with an outfit? But avoiding a lot of the toxicity and vitriol that has come into social media elsewhere. And so when I mentioned earlier that Gen Z sees Pinterest as an oasis away from the toxicity of social media, some of what we tried to avoid in that is the comparative and performative nature of social media, where social media has tended to be about, what a broad audience of people that you don't know, whether they like what you said or what you posted, or what they think about what you're interested in, versus on Pinterest, where people can explore their interests, whether that's fashion or beauty or home design or travel. They can explore those interests with a small, intimate group of friends, or a small, intimate group of people that share their interest, and then do that in a highly visual way.
That's very interesting in terms of what you're working through. And I think there's also another kind of new opportunity that's presenting itself, and that's AI. And I'm hoping that you could talk a little bit more about how you're using AI, how the introduction of AI technology is improving content, or is improving ad relevance, or just improving the user experience.
Yeah, it's a huge area of focus for us. We've accelerated the business quite a bit over the last couple of years, and AI has been right at the very center of that. And so a few things I'd mention on the AI front. One is that we've been using AI just to improve the relevancy and personalization in our recommendations. So some of the examples I gave of putting together an outfit and saying, oh, well, how would this handbag pair with this dress? Or if I'm designing a home in a Moroccan Cape Dutch aesthetic, what kinds of things would go with that? As we have leaned into AI, we now are able to build personalization models and relevancy models that are more than 100 times larger than the ones we had even just a couple of years ago, which means our recommendations of okay, you could pair this handbag with this dress, but would you pair this handbag with this dress? And through the power of AI, we're getting much better at those kinds of recommendations. We saw a full 10 percentage point lift in the relevancy of our recommendations after adopting large language models and GPU serving, which is just sort of the next generation of chips that power AI. And so we've gotten great yield from that, but then we're also doing things like helping to guide people through their search journeys, right? So I gave that example of like designing a home in a Cape Dutch or Moroccan aesthetic. Well, for a lot of people, they may not have the words to describe the things they're looking for, and so they may have just seen a home, whether it's in Architectural Digest or on vacation, walking down the beach, and they say, "Oh, I know I like that," but I don't know what that is. And so with AI, we're able to do things more like guided search, where they can start from an image, and we will help them understand, oh, well, that's Cape Dutch, or that is Moroccan, or this is a design in sort of mid-century modern, when they may not have had the words to describe it themselves, but we'll guide them through that and how to compare these things. And so really, really early promising results of those kinds of things. And we think there's a lot more to go.
I mean, that just like opens the world to people in terms of options.
It does, and I think it's one of the, there's AI is such a broad space, but I think for us, we've also been looking at how we can use it in general ways like this that you might hear others talking about. We've also been looking at things like how do we train it on the unique signals that we have, like how people express their own preferences. So how does somebody style an outfit, or how does somebody put a great room together? Those are very unique signals that happen on our platform that let us make better and better recommendations. But we've also been looking at things like tuning for positivity, which I talked about earlier. Like, okay, a lot of the vitriol that occurs in social media, a lot of the negativity in social media really started when social media switched from being a chronological feed of what your friends posted to what an algorithm thought you should see. And when it was an algorithm, which was sort of just earlier generations of AI deciding what you should see, it was told to maximize your view time. And in maximizing your view time, the AI figured out that people look longer at things that are triggering, whatever your trigger is, whether it's the politician that gets you really fired up, or the somebody else's fake perfect life that they're presenting that you can't possibly live up to. Whatever your triggers are, it'll figure them out because you'll look for longer at those things. And so as we've been tuning AI, we've been tuning not for maximizing view time, but for maximizing positivity. Can we demonstrably show that people feel better after time spent on the platform? And so we actually did some research with UC Berkeley on exactly this topic and found that we could in fact tune for that, but we had to tune not to maximize view time, but what led to positive outcomes like things that you'd say you want to see again, or things that you might actually take action on in the real world versus just look at on a screen. And all of a sudden, more inspiring content rises to the top, less triggering content rises to the top. So we've been doing a lot of that kind of work. And then finally on AI, we've been doing a lot of work around inclusive AI, which I think is really, really important, where we have been using AI to do things like providing diversity by default in our feed. We've talked about body type technology, where we're allowing people to express preferences based on different body types, or skin tone ranges or hair patterns. These are all places where we want to make sure that as we use AI to drive more and more of what's relevant for users, we want to make sure every user can see themselves reflected on Pinterest. So there's a lot of things like that in AI where, yes, there's the general things like getting better recommendations. But there's also some very specific things we're doing, like tuning for positivity and tuning for inclusivity, where we think we're doing some things that certainly are resonating with users, and hopefully help to light a path where AI can do more for good than some of the earlier generations did that had some pretty meaningful unintended consequences.
I love that positivity, and that's a refreshing differentiation. Thank you for taking leadership there. So we have a question coming in, and it's a follow-up question on your comments from Laura Pozeski. And Laura is the chair of the ABA Science and Technology Law section, and she's vice chair of the ABA Task Force on Law and Artificial Intelligence.
My question is, are there other ways Pinterest is fostering more responsible use of social media? And specifically, has it identified ways to curtail proliferation of harmful phenomena like deepfakes and misinformation through either legal or technical responses?
We want to ensure that we are, again, able to maintain the integrity of our platform. And so we are continuously kind of creating and evolving our models to be able to identify kind of deep fakes and other kind of content on our platform that is kind of AI generated and negative, frankly, and kind of misaligned with our policies. And so I would say that from a kind of policy compliance standpoint, that's where we start, by just kind of making sure that we are all grounded in kind of the content that we want on our platform that is allowed by the policies that we maintain, and just ensuring that we are taking the steps necessary to identify content that is kind of not in alignment with our policies. And so, for example, we're in an election season, and kind of one of the things that we are very focused on is ensuring that, consistent with our policy, not to kind of entertain kind of political discourse on our platform or to have political ads on our platform. We want to make sure that we've got the right detection mechanisms. And, whether or not those are, kind of what I'll call like in the real world kind of content that is, not AI generated or not deep fakes, the policies are the policies, right? And so I think we start kind of with policy compliance, and then kind of we work closely with our engineering teams to make sure that we are creating the right detection mechanisms to ensure that we are able to identify, again, when content comes onto our platform that is misaligned with our policies.
That's really interesting, Wanji. And I think I just want to do a follow-up on that question, because when you're, this discussion that Bill just had on AI, there comes an issue of this whole evolving landscape of digital rights and privacy. And so not only do you have to make sure that you're working on the deep fakes, but you also have questions with regards to compliance while not limiting innovation. How do you think about that?
It's a balancing act, right? And so as I think about kind of our top legal issues, kind of that I am certainly keeping an eye on, as is my team, we are a platform, again, search and discovery platform, where our content is largely user-generated content. And so, we're always thinking about how do we kind of honor and respect people's kind of copyright to the material that is present on our platform. And again, when you introduce, as Bill was discussing, kind of artificial intelligence and kind of how content is now being created and how we'll continue to see it being created, it's important, I think, again, just kind of getting grounded in kind of what are we going to allow on our platform and what are we not going to allow on our platform. And so from my perspective and from a kind of compliance perspective, it doesn't matter to me whether it is, kind of created by machines or created by people. What I'm always sort of going back to and getting my team to kind of think about is kind of what are our current set of policies? And look, those are not set in stone. Those will continue to evolve over time. But from a compliance standpoint, that is what I'm kind of measuring our ability to kind of keep the platform kind of the highest integrity that we are trying to honor. But again, a place where a diverse set of people come to kind of search and realize content that is going to help them and inspire them, in alignment with our mission to live a life that they love. So there's a bit of a balancing act, I would say, Donna, just in terms of ensuring that, again, people are able to kind of share and, kind of distribute the content that they're most interested in. But I also want to make sure that that's done in full alignment, not only with applicable laws and regs, but also kind of with the rights of our user base as they continue to share content on our platform.
That makes sense. And I think it's obviously going to be a very iterative process as we go through this with this new technology. And I think Pinterest, when I'm observing, is working on a number of very interesting initiatives. And Bill, one that I'd like to ask you more about is that you've been recognized for your efforts to promote mental health awareness and provide resources to users, including doom scrolling campaign, which I want to hear more about, and your collaboration with Maybelline on the Brave Together campaign. So can you tell us more about these initiatives and your future plans to do those?
Elaborating a little bit more on the doom scrolling phenomenon, I touched on this a bit earlier, that social media started to feel a lot different for everyone when it switched from being this chronological feed of what your friends posted to what an algorithm thought you should see. And that the algorithm and the AI figured out that you would linger for longer on things that were triggering, which is sort of the engagement via enragement phenomenon that's been talked about so much. And, you see that reflected in the mental health crisis that's happening, right? I believe I was the first social media CEO to come out and say social media, the comparisons of social media to big tobacco in some ways are appropriate because you have this very profitable business model that is leading to clear erosion of mental health for users, the U.S. Surgeon General coming out and warning about it. And that's what led to a lot of us saying, like, well, okay, if the social media and the AI powering it can be tuned to maximize view time through things that are triggering, why can't we tune it for positivity? Why can't we make a positive impact on mental health? And why can't we measure ourselves against that objective and measure the AI and the algorithms against that objective the very same as you could measure against a view time objective? And so that's exactly what we've done. We first partnered with University of California at Berkeley to do independent research to verify that we could do that. And we actually were able to prove out that just 10 minutes a day on Pinterest, after we had made these shifts, could help protect Gen Z against rising burnout, stress, social disconnectedness. We then followed that up partnering with the Digital Wellness Lab at Boston Children's Hospital to launch the Inspired Internet Pledge, which is basically saying that we commit to measuring ourselves against mental health outcomes and improvements in well-being and ongoing improvements to that, and asking the industry to do the same. And not just other social media platforms, but asking advertisers, the people that are funding these platforms, to commit to that as well. And we've actually seen really nice uptake in that, because I think the encouraging thing is that there's a lot, not just a lot of people in social media that want to make that better. I think there are a lot of people in the advertising world that know that they're writing the checks and want to influence that. And great brands are built on positivity. So you gave the example of Maybelline, they leaned in to one of the trends that was spotted on Pinterest around really taking time for mental health and journaling and reflection and mindfulness, and built a whole campaign around that. But great brands are built on positivity, and so we're seeing more and more advertisers and brands that want to make sure they're showing up in a positive space. And so as we have leaned into positivity and well-being for the good of our users and starting to demonstrably show that we can tune for that, it is possible, we're also seeing that cuts through on the business side, and the advertisers want to be there as well. And if you step back from all that, my hope is that we can not only change how positivity occurs on our platform, my hope is that we can prove a different business model for social media, one that's built on positivity instead of engagement via enragement. And, the example I always harken back to is, and this is going way, way back, but go all the way back to like Ralph Nader's Unsafe at Any Speed. There was a moment in time when you had, auto manufacturers that said, safety belts and, safety features were against the business model. Well, you start to have then later, car companies compete on their safety record, and brands like Volvo built completely around safety. And now it's hard to imagine buying a car without examining its safety record. And auto manufacturers don't just look to meet the minimum safety ratings, they look to exceed those safety ratings and compete on the safety of their platform. I'd love to see a world where social media is competing on the safety of the platform in the same way that auto manufacturers now compete on the safety of their vehicles. Why can't we prove out that you can do well by doing good and build a great business model around positivity and give users that choice and prove that it's good business as well?
I love your leadership in that regard. And in talking about safety, which I think is so critical, youth safety on social media is just essential right now as parents. Clearly, we're hearing that voice to protect our teens. Wanji, do you want to jump in here and talk about what Pinterest is doing there?
Yeah, I'll mention an initiative that we've just kicked off. And so it's called the Youth Mental Health Corps. And we are partnering with the Schultz Family Foundation to really think about how we can impact kind of youth right here and right now we know we're in the midst of a youth mental health crisis. And this is, it's real and it's happening. And so what we're doing is we are partnering initially right now with 13 different states, where we are going in and training adults to provide support to youth who are, undergoing a series of different challenges that are mental health related, to, again, get them off of their screens, kind of get them out and, to kind of begin to heal. And really kind of, I think, basic fundamental things that many of us did kind of growing up well before there was screens and screen time, but really kind of making sure that our youth are, really kind of looked after and getting the support that they need during what has been a very kind of difficult season for our young people. And I think going back to what Bill was saying, just around, this is kind of bigger than us, right? I mean, we're really trying to start a movement here. And, going back to the Inspired Internet Pledge that Bill mentioned, we are the founding signatories of the Inspired Internet Pledge. And again, this is not just something we're doing in a vacuum. We have numerous other companies that have signed on to that pledge as well, because as Bill said, I mean, again, we're really looking to start a movement, and we want other companies to, take a stand and take action to ensure better outcomes, right, for all of us. But I think, again, we are in the midst of a youth mental health crisis, and that's an area where we really want to put specific focus. And so that's what we've been focused on, just in terms of our youth mental health core work, as well as our Inspired Internet Pledge. And so we're really seeing kind of uptick there and others who are interested in doing the same. But again, just the fact that we are taking an initiative here, again, is just one other reason why I'm so proud to work here at Pinterest.
Well, you certainly should be, because clearly you're leading the way in the right direction. So we have another audience question coming in here, and it's from Juan Thomas, ABA Board of Governors nominee.
What are your thoughts on how we can prevent AI advancements from causing unfair outcomes, especially for vulnerable communities? Should consumer protection laws regulate AI to protect customers and communities from unfair practices and abuse?
It's interesting because I think we've all seen, those of us who've been in the tech space or otherwise, that legislation is kind of slow to kind of keep up with advancements in technology. So I don't think we can just wait for legislators to enact a series of guidelines or kind of rules of the road, so to speak. And so as I think about the kind of work that we're doing here at Pinterest, I think Bill alluded to it earlier, but we are very focused on inclusive search and really making sure that we are very thoughtful when launching new features on our platform related to search, that they are really thinking about kind of the vast kind of user base that we have, and not just geared to kind of one type of person. And so Bill had mentioned our body inclusion search, where, no matter who you are, what you look like, you can kind of find what you are looking for on our platform. We've got kind of our skin tone search, so you can search, and get results, based on your own skin tone, not just kind of one skin tone, as well as hair pattern is the same thing, recognizing that, hair comes in many different textures, patterns, colors, and to be able to kind of search based on that is also extremely unique, but again, makes our platform that much more inclusive. And so I think it's incumbent upon all of us to kind of take steps. And, again, nobody's waiting to be regulated. I'm not naive. I appreciate that. But when we think about, kind of inclusivity and what we think is best for our, broad and diverse customer base, we've really taken the initiative to get out in front and to make sure that, we are doing things in a way that is inclusive and, kind of appropriate and respectful, as opposed to kind of sitting and waiting for our lawmakers to kind of tell us what to do. Because I think, again, as we've seen, there's just a pretty significant lag between kind of where technology is and how it's continuing to evolve at such a fast clip, and where kind of regulation sits.
Well, I'm glad that you're taking that initiative, and I love that inclusivity. And you're speaking about that with regards to your customer base. I would also like to know, Bill, how are you thinking about it for internally at the company?
it's something that's right on a first principles perspective, right? It's something that we should want to do just because it's the right thing to do. But I would also say it is great business, right? That when we think about, as Wanji was describing, we serve a very diverse community of users. Well, we should want to if we want to do well at serving a very diverse community of users, we should want to make sure that we have teams that reflect the diverse communities that we're serving and that understand the diverse communities that we're serving. And so I think that's just really important in thinking about how we build, and I think it really does lead to better business performance. I'd also say it's something that it starts at the top. So like every company, the work is never complete. We've made tremendous progress. The work is never complete, but it does start at the top. And so, as I was building out my executive team, that was something that I thought a lot about. Much more than half our team is comprised of women. We're a platform that serves women. And as I said to my board when I was coming in, we're a platform that skews significantly towards women. If I can't build an executive team of really amazingly talented women for a platform that serves or skews towards women, shame on me. Fortunately, able to attract some amazingly talented women to come join the team. So we now have much more than half our executive team are women. But we've also been driving that through the ranks, right? And we have more than 40% of our leadership across the company are women. Obviously, we're not done there. We've got more to go. Ideally, you'd want that to be 50% or better. But we're driving that through the business. And again, I think it's certainly something that should be done because it's a right thing to do from a first principles perspective. But I also do think it aligns with great business. I've seen this time and time again in the businesses I've built that the greater diversity of perspective, the greater diversity of ideas, the better the outcomes tend to be. And so I've seen that time and again. I see it here at Pinterest. We've shared some of the things that we're doing. That comes from welcoming different perspectives and having the debate. Wanji was talking about how she and I will talk through things together and debate things, and we get to better answers because of it. That's the kind of culture I want to have, where we welcome diverse perspectives and we get to better answers because we are welcoming those diverse perspectives.
I think Bill's being very modest. I've been in other C-suites, and this is by far the most diverse C-suite that I've been in. As Bill alluded to, we are 60% female in our C-suite, 40% people of color. I challenge anyone to, put us up against any other Fortune 1000 C-suite just in terms of competing on diversity. And I think you're right, Bill. I think because of that, it elevates our conversations in a way that really is unique and gets to really, really great outcomes. But I want you to take credit for that because, this is your team that you've assembled. And it's so unique, as you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's the privilege is mine. As sharing the stories earlier, it's helped me to be a better leader, and so it's a virtuous cycle.
I'm really happy to hear that, and I want to congratulate you as well, Bill, because that is not the normal executive suite. Certainly not the normal suite in technology. And in fact, Wanji, because you have experience serving on the board of the Minority Corporate Counsel Association, and from that perspective and just your perspective in industry, what more can the tech industry be doing?
I think Bill has set the example, right? I think it's all about being deliberate and taking action. It's really that simple. And so as opposed to declaring kind of defeat, like, oh, I can't do this, I can't find people, it is going out and doing just that, going out and being deliberate about really kind of, do you want to win? I think everybody wants to win. I don't think anyone's going to say, no, I don't want to win. And I think we've all seen the studies about the impact and results of diverse teams. And I think, again, just being deliberate in terms of your sourcing strategies, in terms of, ensuring that you've got not only kind of diverse slates of candidates, but diverse slates of people interviewing your diverse slates of candidates. And again, really just being very focused on that and not settling for, kind of defeat or any sort of inability to, kind of achieve the mission of ensuring that you've got the best outcomes to win in the marketplace.
Thanks for that leadership again. You guys are doing a great job. Okay, there's another question coming here from the audience from Brian Plout, who is the law student representative to the ABA Board of Governors.
Could you please discuss Pinterest's approach to addressing issues of algorithmic bias and discrimination, especially in the context of promoting inclusivity and diversity on the platform?
As Wanji and I both shared, this is something that is deeply important to us. I think it matters tremendously. And so, we've talked about how we are tuning for things like, diversity by default in our feeds, how we're bringing things like inclusive AI to the platform to help people, see themselves reflected on Pinterest, whether it's through skin tone filters or hair pattern searches or body type technology, where people can, make sure that they're, able to find fashion in things that represent what they look like, not just what the average fashion model looks like. These are all things that we're building into the platform, but I think it's a tremendously important issue, something that we've been building for. And a final thing I'd say on this, and then certainly Wanji should add into it, is, I think this is also a place where, just like with well-being, we've talked about with tuning AI for positivity and well-being, that it's important to measure outcomes, not just tactics, but outcomes. And I think this will be something that'll be really important over time, is to make sure that the outcomes are being tracked in this area in the same way that it's important to track outcomes on well-being, and we're doing that. I think it'll also be important to track outcomes on, is the AI reflecting the populations it serves? That's what we hope to do, is reflect the populations that we serve. I think that'll be an important outcome to track over time.
And the only thing I'll share is maybe something a bit more anecdotal, to say that earlier in the year had the occasion to speak at a high school on Martin Luther King Day, where I had a chance to talk to a number of students who gave me feedback on kind of their perception of Pinterest and their experience on Pinterest. And it was a diverse group of students. And I will just say that, I think the efforts that we are putting forward are showing. And I think young people who are, again, as I alluded to earlier, kind of really undergoing a bit of a mental health crisis, a lot of it sparked by social media. I think people come to our platform expecting something different, and something better. And I think that is what we are really focused on delivering, as Bill suggested. So, again, just wanted to highlight anecdotally that I think our efforts are being experienced and felt by especially our young users.
Well, Bill and Wanji, I know there are listeners today that would greatly appreciate your career counsel. So, Bill, what advice would you give to someone just starting out their career in business, tech, or law? And what insights can you offer to those seeking to shift their career towards broader leadership roles?
Find things to work on that you're really passionate about, that you really love. I started in my career as an entrepreneur where, I was an engineer and, was building things I felt were cool. Is interesting to be able to go write some code and build something from the ether. And as much as that was cool, the first time I was building something that I really connected with how other people were using it. My parents were small business owners. Braintree, which was the fourth of the 5 startups, was the first time my customers were other small businesses. And I was trying to bring digital capabilities to people like my parents, that had a little single storefront in a tiny little town in Kentucky, and being able to think about I was building something to help people like them. Boy, that just felt different. And so I would say, it can sound a little bit cliche, but I think it's work on something you love and you never work a day in your life. Finding something that really gives you inspiration will just totally change the way you feel, the passion you put into your work. And as I shared earlier, it's a big part of why I came to Pinterest. So that's the one. The second one, I'd say, you end up spending most of your waking hours with the people that you're working with. Make sure you're working with people that you really, really enjoy, and that are going to push you, help you grow, not just tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And I'm quite grateful that I've found a number of those folks in my career, and Wanji is certainly very high on that list. So those would be my 2. So
Wanji, my question for you with regards to career advice for those that are listening is, can you give guidance to seasoned lawyers who are considering a shift towards business leadership roles beyond just the legal aspect, and specifically in the tech industry?
So I guess my best advice would be, first and foremost, to think broadly about your role. To the extent you want to expand what you're doing, you've got to pick your head up. You've got to kind of look to the left, look to the right, look beyond, and think about where you can add value. I have always said that being trained as a lawyer really allows us the ability to kind of analyze things deeply, to provide creative solutions to problems. And so you can always take that experience and it translates really anywhere. And so, again, think broadly about your role, where you can add value, kind of where you can solve problems, ease pain points, help people, your business partners, find a path forward. So I think that would be my best advice. And then also, as you think about expanding your career, if you're already kind of mid-level or senior, I'd also focus on leadership. You don't have to have a big team to be a leader. Actually, you don't even have to have any direct reports to be a leader. But I would really focus on kind of how you can continue to hone your leadership skills. And if there isn't an opportunity where you are now to do that, you can certainly look to maybe joining a nonprofit board or volunteering somewhere where you can actually, kind of get that leadership experience. But I think that'll be important as you continue to expand your career, maybe beyond that of just a strictly legal function.
Again, very outstanding career advice. Appreciate that from both of you. And now we have a final audience question here from Brian Beck. He's a partner with Zuber Lawler and a member of the advisory committee to the Task Force for Law and Artificial Intelligence.
One of the challenges in promoting DEI as an employer in the legal field is that a company or a law firm can only recruit from attorneys who have graduated law school and passed the bar, and therefore can't widen its search beyond the limitations already created by the law school pipeline. Pinterest has done some admirable work with Oakland Technical High School in promoting legal careers to disadvantaged and minority high school students to encourage interest in law school among diverse high school students. What else do you think companies and law firms can do to encourage greater diversity among lawyers, not just after law school, but in the pathway to law school?
So I think you're referring to our street law program where we partner with a public school in the Oakland area. And what we're really doing is we're kind of thinking very broadly about the pipeline. So not just kind of who are the lawyers today who can fill the roles that we have today, but really thinking about how can we kind of provide more access and diversity into our industry as lawyers. And so part of that is really kind of making sure that everybody feels like they have access to pursue a career in the law should they choose to do so. And so the program that is being described there is really one that we've embarked on where we are really at very early stages while kids are pre-college. We're really trying to expose them to the possibilities of having a career in the law with hopes that these young people will come in. We're actually hosting a program next week that they'll come in and see a variety of diverse lawyers, some who look like me, some who don't, but at least they can begin to see themselves kind of hopefully one day sitting in one of these jobs. So I would just encourage everyone to kind of think about their pipeline and feeder plans, if you will, broadly, so that they can really kind of begin to think about how do we make sure that we've got a pipeline that is diverse going forward so that we can continue to ensure that we can all do our part to ensure that we continue to promote diversity in our profession and that we actually realize that goal.
Bill and Wanji, as we close this discussion today, it's a great discussion, but I'd love to know how you personally use Pinterest to help create the life that you love.
My current use cases for Pinterest include recipes. Started cooking during the pandemic, and I'm still doing that with a focus on salads and homemade salad dressing. Cannot buy store-bought salad dressing anymore. In addition, I also use it for fashion, which is fun. And I also use it for golf tips. As Donna, as you know, because you are one of my golf partners, there are a lot of good golf tips. I hope you're using Pinterest for golf tips, but those are, I think, my top 3 use cases at this point.
For me, certainly, looking for fashion ideas, although I'm not a high fashion kind of person, but just, it's helpful. I'm I'm a bit of a sneakerhead, so I find a lot of interesting sneakers on the platform. But I say one of the things I enjoy most is that, I'm a dad. I've got a 10-year-old daughter, and, I find lots of great parenting advice and things like that. Every day seems like there's a a new thing, as she's growing and advancing, there's new things to deal with. And I find it a great place for that. And I think that's just one more example of just the breadth of things people come to Pinterest to find inspiration on. Yes, there's a lot of it that is commercial in nature, like shopping, but there's a lot of it which is just inspiration for people's daily life. Whatever it is their daily life is comprised of, people can find inspiration for that, and ideally find inspiration from people that have similar interests to what they do. And so, that's really fun to build. As we've shared, we've got a lot more of that to do.
Bill and Wanji, thanks so much for this very inspiring interview today and for bringing positivity to social media. We greatly appreciate it. Mary, I'll turn it back to you now.
Thank you so much, Donna, and thank you, Bill and Wanji, for inspiring us with your positivity. And if you've been inspired by today's conversation, think about joining the American Bar Association. Go to ambar.org/membership. And thanks again for joining us today.